Welcome to I Dream of Reborning's Vinyl Umbilical Cord Painting Masterclass. In this course, I'm going to teach you how to paint this hyper-realistic umbilical cord, as well as this hyper-realistic umbilical cord. Two different sculpts in two different styles. Let's begin. To create these realistic umbilical cords, I'll be using everything that you see here on my desk. I have my paint thinners, my detailing brushes. I have a dish just in case I need to put a little thinners in there and wash my paint brushes as I go along. I have polyurethane gloss. I have the umbilical cords by Laura Eagles and one by Vivian Alelua. And what I like to do with them is I like to paint them on wooden dowels for stability, as well as dry them and bake them on the dowels using a thick oven safe dish here. This is actually a thick glass for custards, so it works really well. I'm using the Genesis glazing medium, but if you don't have that, the Irresistible's pour texture medium works perfectly. We'll be using this later in the video as well. I have thinning medium by Bountiful Baby. It's really great because it bakes shiny. And magnets. This magnet here is about 1/4 of an inch in width and then about 1/8 of an inch in thickness. The colors I'll be using are yellow ochre, green 06, blue vein, ultramarine blue, blue 02, deep creases, Bountiful Baby lip blush nail, and titanium white. I also have things like, I have a couple of brushes here for using the glazing mediums in particular, and then I'll have my little palettes here to mix all of the paints together, and I'll be using another one, of course. Can never have too many supplies. Before we begin painting, it's so important to understand the anatomy of the umbilical cord. As you can see from my son's just born image here, the umbilical cord is very translucent with variations of color. They're not a singular color and they're not a single flat tube, they are very coiled. A freshly born umbilical cord is plump, moist, and glistening, and it has a gelatinous, rubbery texture and usually a pale yellow or bluish and white color. On average, it's about 20 inches long and about 1/2 inch in girth, so about the width of a human adult thumb. The core components of the umbilical cord is a single large vessel that carries oxygenated blood to the placenta, 2 smaller vessels, which are umbilical arteries that spiral around the larger vein, Wharton's jelly, and this acts as a natural shock absorber, preventing the cord from kinking or compressing, and then the amnion, which is the outer layer of the umbilical cord, which connects directly to the amniotic sac. The structure and function are coiling. The umbilical vessels naturally twist together in a spiral. Some have 40 turns, some can have less, but on average it's about 40, and vascular walls. The vessel walls contain specialized smooth muscle and connective tissue layers, and it allows the cord to actively regulate blood flow and pressure. Why are some umbilical cords pearlescent translucent? A bright, pearly white or translucent umbilical cord immediately after birth is very common. This appearance is due to the cord's natural structure, which is made up of blood vessels surrounded by protective tissue substances called the Wharton's jelly. This jelly-like material allows the cord to appear soft, glossy, and sometimes slightly blue or gray beneath the surface, where the blood vessels can subtly show in a fresh newborn cord. This translucency is what creates that pearlescent look rather than a solid opaque color. And then why are some yellow translucent? Yellow tone umbilical cords are also very common. The Wharton's jelly composition is a contributing factor to this. A thicker concentration of this protective tissue can give the cord a warm yellow tone. Natural pigments, such as bilirubin, which are produced during the breakdown of red blood cells, can also subtly influence the coloration of newborn umbilical cords. In many cases, the overall tone of the cord can vary naturally from baby to baby, even with the same birth environment. There are other ways that can cause natural differentiations in color within an umbilical cord, such as delayed cord clamping. Delaying cutting the cord by 10-15 minutes or more can substantially change the color of the umbilical cord. A natural born pearlescent umbilical cord can turn yellow, and vice versa. A yellow can turn white. Also, cord entanglement. When the cord is wrapped around the baby within the womb, this causes strict restriction within the blood and oxygen flow and can cause purpling. All in all, though, a healthy umbilical cord is not going to be overly red, which is a common mistake within the Reborn artistry. This masterclass is going to demonstrate how to create a milky translucent white cord with deep ultramarine blue veining, as well as a warm translucent cord with soft green blue veining, using umbilical cords by Laurel Eagles and Vivian Alelua. Two very different styles of sculpts, so therefore two very different styles of painting. Now that we understand the anatomy of the umbilical cord, it's time for the fun part. Let's create some together. To create a nice base color for the umbilical cords, I'm using glazing gel, the thin medium, as well as titanium white. I've noticed that this thinning medium by Gemini mixes so beautifully with the Genesis glazing gel. And I'm going to start by taking a little bit of the thinning medium and putting it in my dish, and then I'm going to mix it really well with the titanium white. For the color distribution in this start mixture, you want it to be like relatively thick. And now for the viscosity, I'm going to add a nice thick dollop of my Genesis glazing gel and mix it until it's completely smooth. And now that I'm happy with this particular mixture, I'm actually going to add a little bit more thinning medium because we don't want it to be fully opaque. We want it to be slightly transparent, because what this mixture is going to do is it's actually going to give a really nice base color. It's going to tone down the fleshy, yellowish consistency of the sculpted vinyl umbilical cords, and then it's going to create kind of like a realistic flesh layer so that when we start building up the coloring and the Wharton's jelly and all of the layers in the Reborn umbilical cord, it's going to look very real. Now, as you can see here on the Vivian Alelua umbilical cord, this area was definitely sculpted to simulate a belly button. So we're going to avoid adding any colors to the belly button area, and we're just going to concentrate on the umbilical cord itself. I'm going to apply this in a way so that it is coated thoroughly, but we want to blend it smooth. We don't want any paint lines. We don't want any pooling in the creases and wrinkles. We just want a nice, smooth based texture. And I'm going to be applying this mixture on the Vivian Alelua umbilical cord, the milky white umbilical cord, as well as the Laurel Eagles umbilical cord that we are painting with a translucent yellow. And now I'm going to do the same thing on the Lorelei Eagle's umbilical cord. I don't believe the bottom of this was sculpted to simulate a belly button. The Gracie May kit that I'm making this umbilical cord for already has a really detailed belly button that fits perfectly with this. So for this demonstration, this umbilical cord will entirely be an umbilical cord. So I'm going to apply the white to the entire surface area of this particular sculpture. And again, you want to apply this nice and smooth and even and continue blending out with your brush or with a cosmetic sponge so that it is smooth and even and not textured. We're going for a base layer. We don't want a whole lot of texturing or brush strokes in our paint just yet. And now that both umbilical cords are coated, I'm going to put them in the oven at 265 for 10 minutes, and then we are going to repeat this step again. Here they are after being baked. They look good, but they are definitely ready for another layer so we can achieve that beautiful, realistic underflesh of the umbilical cord. So I'm just coating them over again, and then once they are ready to go, we will bake them again at 265 for 10 minutes. And now that both layers are fully baked, it is time to start detailing our umbilical cords. Now, starting with the Lorelei Eagle's umbilical cord, the yellow translucent cord, we are going to start with some thinning medium and some phthalo green to start building up that depth or that under depth, the viscosity of the vascular vein detailing. Now I'm going to take the green and I'm only going to apply it to areas where I will be adding the deep veining at. I'm not going to apply it to areas that are going to be more of the yellow translucent tissues where the Wharton's jelly really flows through. I am just going to take the brush and I'm going to naturally follow the sculpture of where I see the vein details being. Laura Lee Eagles did a beautiful job in sculpting all the gorgeous coils and vascular details within this umbilical cord. So it's very easy to just take your brush and just kind of follow along the spiral of where those vein details are going to be. This first coat of green, I'm going to make sure that it's mostly all pretty even and blended, avoiding pooling in the creases and wrinkles, and making it all just kind of one flat color. And I'll be using my blending brush to get out any of the pooling in the creases and wrinkles, and to just blend all of that green into the vein areas. Now I'm going to add a little bit more green to my palette, and then I'm taking a liner brush and I'm going to start adding green to the areas that I've already added green, but we're going to do it a little bit darker, and we're going to do it darker in some areas and lighter in other areas. The darker areas are going to be where the really prominent visible veins are going to show through all of those layers of the umbilical cord. So we don't want this layer to be even and blended. We want variations of color showing through this umbilical cord, and this is the first step to start achieving that. So we don't want any pooling in the creases and wrinkles, of course. We're going to blend that out, but we are going to add some areas that are a bit more deep and some areas that are a bit more blended. We are going to do the same thing to the Vivian Elelua umbilical cord, but we're going to be using a different color. We're going to take some thinning medium and we're going to mix it with the phthalo blue color for the depth layers of this umbilical cord. And just like with the green color, we don't want this to be too opaque. We want it to be slightly translucent. So we're not going to add way too much blue in this step just yet. We are going to, just like with the other umbilical cord, we're going to follow the areas where we think that the veins are going to be more prominent. Now with the pearly umbilical cords, you can go all out on the veins, or you can do very little. You can do lots of spirals, or you can do just one or two. The pearly umbilical cords, sometimes they're more white with very minimal veining, and sometimes they have lots of veins show through. It's really personal preference. But for this demonstration, I'm going to go all out in the veining details of this umbilical cord for the sake of the course. So with this first blue layer, I am just adding it to the areas that I think the veins would be, and I am blending it all out, making sure there's no pooling in the creases and wrinkles, and I'm keeping it all one flat color. Now, just like with the green, we're going to take a little bit more blue and place it into our palette, because now we're going to go over that blue again, and we're going to build up more variations of color. Just like with the green, I'm just going to add deeper blue to certain areas, and then just adding a more blended blue to other areas so that we can create variations of color. I've noticed that with pearlescent milky white umbilical cords, sometimes the veins that show through have a lighter blue depth with a ultramarine type blue in the areas where the veins are more prominent. Sometimes there can be variations of even like purpling in these types of umbilical cords. It really just depends on the look that you're going for. All in all, I highly recommend studying pictures of real umbilical cords when you are creating umbilical cords for your dolls. You're going to get a more realistic result. Here are the two umbilical cords. You can see how different they are going to be from each other, and I'm going to bake them now at 265 for about 10 minutes. All right, now it's time to add some depth to the umbilical cords with the creases and wrinkles. With a little bit of thinners, I'm taking the Deep Crease Color by Bountiful Baby, and I'm mixing it into my thinners so that it's not super thin and translucent, but it's not very opaque either. It's kind of like in between. You want a nice, rich color for this. I actually love this color specifically for painting umbilical cords and the creases and wrinkles. Now, using my liner brush, I'm just going to go in and I'm just like with a Reborn doll, I'm going to fill in all of those beautiful creases and wrinkles, and this is going to bring out so much detail, and it's going to make the umbilical cord look so realistic. And I'm going to avoid pooling in the creases and wrinkles. I'm going to make sure everything is applied nice and smooth, and I'm going to make sure that the crease where the belly button area is supposed to be is going to be a bit more deeper and darker than the rest of the umbilical cord. And I'm also going to make sure that I fill in any of the sculpted clamp details in the umbilical cord as well. And now that I'm done with the creases and wrinkles, it's time to start enhancing this belly button. I'm going to take my green mix from earlier and start tapping it onto the belly button area. I'm going to tap it in a way so that it's more mottled looking than anything else. And this is going to create that nice base coat of human skin so that when we start blushing and adding details to it later, it will really look like a belly button and match our tummy plate. I'm going to use the same color on our yellow translucent umbilical cord as well. Like I said, I absolutely love this color specifically for umbilical cords. And now that both cords have had their creases and wrinkles filled, I'm going to put them in for a bake at 265 for 10 minutes. Once they've been baked and cooled, now I'm going to do a Genesis glazing medium layer. I'm going to just take some glazing gel from the center where the oily buildup is, and I'm going to spread a nice thin coat on the entirety of the umbilical cord, but avoiding the sculpted belly button area. This layer is actually so important. Do not skip this. Use your pore texture medium if you don't have glazing gel. This is what's going to build up that illusion of Wharton's jelly on the umbilical cord, and it's going to tribute so much realism to your umbilical cords. So after these have both been coated, you're going to bake them at 265 for 15 minutes. Once they are completely baked and cooled, you can see they're starting to develop that subtle sheen, and everything that's already painted looks underneath. Now it's time to start doing the veining. So I'm going to be taking some thinning medium and I'm going to distribute it across a couple of wells so that I can get my colors mixed and ready to go to start painting the veins on my umbilical cords. I'm going to take some of the Vein Blue by Bountiful Baby and mix it into the thinning medium. And just like with the creases and wrinkles, we want this to be kind of in between being translucent and opaque. Now, starting with the translucent yellow umbilical cord, I'm going to use this color to enhance all of that green that we've already layered into it. And then I'm going to add vein details to the areas where we added the deeper, darker areas of green to really give that illusion of a deep vein showing through all of those areas and layers of the umbilical cord. I'm going to blend this color into some areas, and then I'm actually going to draw in veining using multiple layers. Now, when the umbilical cord, when you're looking at it and you look at the veining, some areas actually kind of look mottled because it's stacked in between layers of that we discussed earlier in the video during the anatomy. You know, the Wharton's jelly, the skin layers, So we're going to achieve that effect here as well. We're going to do kind of like a stippling, kind of like a mottling in the areas that we're blending into the green, as well as adding that deep vein into some areas because we need variations of color. We want areas to be a deeper blue, some to be a lighter blue. We want areas of like the deep greenish color to show through as well. Now we are going to concentrate on the milky translucent umbilical cord, and I'm going to take some ultramarine blue and mix it into the thinning medium. And just like the other blue, we kind of wanted that medium. We want it to be very vibrant and rich in color, but not too translucent and not too opaque. And we are going to build it up in areas that the veins are going to be more visible, as well as blending thin layers of this into the blue depth. But we want to make sure that we don't distribute it evenly throughout the umbilical cord. We need variations of color. We want some areas to be more of like that purpley ultramarine blue, and then some areas of just kind of like a light blue starting to show through. We are going to avoid the belly button area with this layer, of course, and we are going to make sure that there's no pooling in the creases and wrinkles. Now we are going to go back to our same color mixes and continue building depth in our umbilical cords. But this time I'm only going to concentrate on areas where the deep veins are present. No other place, only where the deep veins are. And I'm going to continue to kind of draw little lines of veins into the centers of all of those super exposed veins. And you can see here that those veins are starting to look very real. And now with the ultramarine blue, I'm going to do the same exact thing to our other umbilical cord. I am going to draw the veins in the centers of where all of those super exposed veins are. And that is the only area that I will be concentrating on with this layer. You can see the variations of color and how realistic those veins are. Very happy with the vein details on both of these umbilical cords, so now I'm going to put them in the oven at 265 for 10 minutes. Now that they've been baked and cooled, we're going to step it up a little bit by enhancing the veins even further using the opposite colors. So the colors that we used for the yellow, we're going to use on the milky, and the colors that we used on the milky, we will use on the yellow. And we are just going to take these colors and add them here and there along the deep veins, not completely through the middle, just here and there, enhancing that vein. We want it to kind of have like a stippled, like mottled effect, like I described earlier in the video. So we're not going to be coating the entirety of the vein, just certain spots of that vein, making sure that there's no creasing, pulling in the creases and wrinkles as we go along. And you can see how much that elevated the vein detailing. And now we're going to use the same technique on our other umbilical cord, but this time using the ultramarine blue. We are just going to enhance throughout the vein areas here and there with that color. We're not going to put it on the entirety of the vein, just in certain areas to bring out the variations of color. Now the veins go from being realistic to straight next level realism. Now that we have completed the veins, we are going to bake these at 265 for 10 minutes. Once they've been baked and cooled, we are going to do yet another of many layers of the Genesis glazing gel medium. We're going to make sure we avoid the belly button area on that one umbilical cord and make sure everything's nice and evenly coated, because like I said, this is a really important step. It makes everything look underneath, especially when we start adding color on top. Once coated, we're going to bake at 265 for 15 minutes. Now it's time to start building up the translucency in all of the details around the belly button area, as well as adding some depth to the clamped area, all of that blood pooling that looks underneath, as well as the surface areas of the yellow discoloring on this cord. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of mix all of my paint right now into 3 separate wells. And I'm starting with this Bountiful Baby Lip Blush Nail. I really love this color. As you can see, I'm using thinning medium for these layers, just like most of the previous layers. So I'm going to take this red color and I'm going to start adding it to the tip here where the umbilical cord was cut and clamped, to simulate that blood flow that kind of pooled underneath the tissue upon the cutting of the umbilical cord. You don't want to overdo it with the reds. Keep it really light, very underneath, and try not to let anything pool in the creases. Blend it out, blend it upward. You don't want the red to be too dark, but you don't want it to be too light either. You want it to be kind of like inner blushed, like that blood was pooling inside the tissue upon being clamped and cut. We are not going overboard. We are not going to add any blood to the tip. This is just for the under the surface layers. And I think that looks pretty great. And now I'm going to do the same thing to this umbilical cord here. I'm just going to add the inner red detailing blushing. I am going to bring the red up just a little bit higher in this umbilical cord because it was sculpted for the clamp to go at the very tip of it. And I do want some red to show beyond where the clamp is going to be. I just love how that looks and how it really brings out that vein detail right there as well. And now that I'm really happy with how this looks for now, I'm actually going to take the red paint and I'm going to go back between my mix and straight from the pot to do some blushing here on this belly button. We just want to blush it a little bit to make it match the tummy plate and just give the illusion even more that this is a little belly button attached to this umbilical cord. And as always, be sure to blend, blend, blend. Don't let anything pull into the creases and wrinkles. You don't want to overly brush it. You just want it to be nice and gently blushed like a real newborn baby's belly button. Just look at how much realism this has added to the umbilical cord already. Now we're going to enhance the foundation of that Warden's jelly that we've been building up with those glazing gel layers. In my thinning medium, we're going to add some titanium white, and now this is for the milky translucent specific umbilical cord. We want this mix to be pretty thick, but kind of like a medium viscosity. We don't want it to be too opaque, but we don't want it to be thin either. Kind of like a milky consistency. And now I'm going to take that third thinning medium well, and I'm going to add the yellow ochre, and this is going to be for the umbilical cord that is super yellow translucent. See, it's pretty thick, but it's pretty thin at the same time. I did not bake that last step with the red because I like to build this on over that red paint after it has set for a few minutes, because I think that it gives a really good illusion of how it blends together when you mix them without baking in between those two steps. So with my milky translucent cord, I'm taking the titanium white mixture and I'm going over the entire umbilical cord but avoiding the belly button area. And I'm just going to go over everything and blend it with my cosmetic wedge or a dry brushing brush, just to make sure that it's nice and smooth. There's no texture. It's kind of modeled over the veins that you can see, those very deep veins, and it gives a nice solid even coat. Now you can go as white as you want with this or as minimal as you want with this. Umbilical cords are all different from each other. Some are super pearly white, some are kind of bluish. You know, it's all personal preference. Now I'm going to add a little bit more realism and depth to the skin tone to the belly button area by just kind of modeling on some of the yellow ochre mix to just enhance that blush and look like real baby skin. I'm really happy with how this looks. And now I'm going to take the yellow ochre and I'm going to start applying it to the other umbilical cord, the translucent yellow. And just like the other cord, I'm applying it everywhere, and I also did not bake the red in between these layers. I just love blending them together while they're both uncured, because it really builds that illusion and depth of the blood pooling beneath the tissue. Now, I am applying it everywhere, but when I'm starting to add the secondary layers, I'm actually going to pack the secondary layers only on the areas where there is no veins exposed, because we don't want our vein areas to turn too green. So we're going to blend it on lightly where the vein area is, but then we're going to put the thicker, more packed on areas onto those surface areas of skin. Once you've gotten the full base colors of the yellow and the milky white, we are actually going to bake these at 265 for 10 minutes. Once they're all baked, we're going to go in for a second coat of yellow on one cord and white on the other cord. You can go as white as you'd like, you can go as yellow as you would like. I have built it up to the consistency that I personally like, and now I'm going to give these a bake at 265 for 10 minutes. And of course, when those have baked and cooled, we are going in for another layer of glazing medium. This is going to further enhance all of that Warden's jelly that we just built up. You can really start to see how enhanced they have become after being glazed. So I'm going to bake these 265 for 15 minutes. Now we're going to go back to that titanium white mix. And this time we are applying that mix to both of the umbilical cords to act as that surface area where the skin tissue and the Warden's jelly kind of meet. So we're going to apply it everywhere, avoiding the belly button, of course. Look at how realistic they look. And of course, we're going to bake this at 265 for 10 minutes. Now with the Irresistible's Pore Texture Medium and just like a little sponge, this is just for the belly button. I'm just going to take a little bit and then just add that Pore Texture Medium to the belly button just to make it look like a belly button, to make it look like skin, and so that way it will match the tummy plate and just enhance the realism. You are also welcome to use your own skin texturing mix that you used on your Reborn doll for their completion. It doesn't have to necessarily be the pore texturing medium. Just for precautionary measures to make sure that all of the glazing gel mediums we've been building up is fully cured, despite the fact that this is the only layer that we're doing here, I'm still going to put both umbilical cords into the oven at 265 for 15 minutes. We are going to enhance where the umbilical cord has been cut by adding some actual blood detailing, going back to that red paint mix and glazing gel medium. We're just going to buffer on that mix and go back and forth between the mix and the paint straight from the jar to build that fresh blood effect. You want the blood to be randomized and not one solid area. So you want it to look realistic. You don't want to go too overboard with the blood either, because umbilical cords don't necessarily hemorrhage because they've been clamped. So you just want to enhance it a little bit. And we are going to do the same exact technique with this umbilical cord as well. Because Vivian sculpted this umbilical cord specifically for a clamp to go on the tip, I'm actually doing the red a little bit darker than I normally would, because I really want that to show underneath the clamp and look super realistic. Looking at them now, I think I'm going to do a couple more layers of yellow to the yellow translucent umbilical cord before we get to the next step. And then I'll bake at 265 for 10 minutes. Now I'm just going to go back to my dish and dowels to make a makeshift drying rack for this step. I'm using a quality water-based polyurethane. You have to make sure that you're using a very good quality polyurethane for this step because you don't want to end up with a sticky or tacky umbilical cord. This is one of the most important steps of achieving realism, and it's my secret that I'm dishing out to you today. So my favorite polyurethane brand is Bluebird, or there's also a very good quality polyurethane called Varathane, and I'm using the gloss polyurethane. And I'm applying these layers relatively thick and avoiding the belly button area on this umbilical cord, of course. We don't want that to be glossed. So you want to avoid pooling in the creases and wrinkles, but you do want to apply this pretty thick. So be sure to keep an eye on it when it's drying so that if you see any little droplets or anything dripping, you can go in there with your brush and sweep it off. Varathane is a completely different type of medium than like a Mod Podge or Aleene's paper glaze. All of these products are actually relatively different from each other, and you're going to get completely different results. Out of everything on the market, polyurethane is going to give you the absolute best result. Here they are, completely glossed, and they look gorgeous. I'm going to let these dry overnight. You want to let polyurethane dry completely before moving on to clamping. As you can see with the umbilical cord here, the magnets fit perfectly, and I would clamp about right here with a hospital authentic umbilical cord clamp, but this is a commissioned umbilical cord from a custom for my client, and I'm just going to let her clamp it instead because clamping the vinyl umbilical cords does cause permanent indentations. Okay, so to put in the magnet, all you have to do is take that magnet that I gave the measurements earlier in the video and just pop it in. You're just going to shove it in. And you want it to be inside a little bit. You don't want it to be perfectly aligned so that it sits on the tummy plate really well. You can go ahead and glue it with like an E6000 or B7000, but I prefer not to glue them in place to give my clients the option of interchanging them with other tummy plates. And now I'm going to take the hospital clamp and I'm just going to clamp it right on that perfectly sculpted tip that Vivian made specifically for adding the umbilical cord clamps. If you want the clamp to be permanently bonded, you can take some UV glue right here and secure it into place. And now our umbilical cords are complete and ready to photograph on our Reborn dolls. I truly hope that you enjoyed this vinyl umbilical cord painting masterclass. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and until then, happy reborning.